Hello everybody, today I'm going to be talking about the 5 things that I've learned or taken away from not buying books for 7 months. There might have been 1 or 2 exceptions here and there, but in general I haven't bought any books. I just bought one and it was a Taylor Swift book, so you're just going to have to forgive me that one. But in general, I have not bought any books in 2024. And my reasoning for doing that was because I had a physical TBR of 70 books and that needed to go down. It needed to go down. And we're currently on 26, which I think is pretty good in terms of getting down that number. And I've learned quite a few things from 7 months of, nearly 8 months of not buying books, because we're halfway through July now. And the first thing that really struck me is that I actually just didn't have a desire, and I don't have a desire to buy books. I thought that it would be so much harder because I've tried book buying bans and stuff before. But I don't know what it is about this time. Maybe it's due to having an Excel spreadsheet that was kind of staring at me with facts and figures on it that kind of kicked me into gear in terms of, keeping the book buying ban. But the desire to buy books is not there. I can go into bookshops and I just don't buy things. And I suppose because I'm not buying, it is making me more mindful and intentional of what I'm reading, and it will make me more mindful and intentional when I eventually do buy books. I mean, the one book that I did buy was a Taylor Swift, about her songwriting kind of book, and I was definitely okay with buying that because I thought about it, but I haven't broke the ban for anything else, so I think that's pretty good. The second thing that I have kind of observed from all of this is that reading has felt more rewarding because I feel like I'm accomplishing something, and yes, I am accomplishing something in terms of reducing my TBR, but it's also just more rewarding because I don't feel as suffocated, in the sense that before I would read books, but I would never feel like I'm any closer to reading the books that I had bought and wanted to read, evidently, if I bought them. It just felt like a never-ending cycle of me trying to play catch-up and never getting there. I had books that I had had for years and I just still hadn't read them, and I was it felt like a waste of money, and that was putting pressure on me. And it just was a never-ending cycle, whereas now it feels more rewarding because I'm actually getting through the books that I bought. Obviously because I wanted to read them, but if I just kept buying books and the rate at which I was buying them wasn't matching the rate at which I was reading, I just felt kind of stressed. Number 3 then, kind of linked to number 2, is that I feel more positive about reading. It doesn't feel like a chore anymore. I don't feel suffocated by it. So 2 and 3 kind of go in hand, that it feels more rewarding and it doesn't feel like a chore anymore. And it kind of felt not rewarding, and it did feel like a chore for a little bit. The fourth thing, and the fourth observation, or the fourth thing that I've learned, because I'm learning but I'm also observing certain things, is that it's giving me time to focus on what I already have and discover gems in my collection that realistically I wouldn't have discovered for maybe years if I hadn't put in place this ban and adhered to it. It was just like a big massive pile and I was never getting back to base with it. Whereas now at least I'm reading the books that I want to read instead of getting distracted by new releases, because I do that a lot where I will hear that a book is popular and I keep seeing the book, but I might not necessarily know what the book is about, and then I'll just buy it because it's popular, not because I have a genuine interest in it. I was very guilty of doing that, and as a result I've read books. Some of them have taken me by surprise and I really love them, but then equally I've read books that I actually had no interest in and didn't like, and I could have been putting that energy elsewhere. The fifth thing, and probably the most obvious things that I've saved money, it kind of goes without saying that you're able to spend money on other ventures if you're not constantly spending money on books. It also has reminded me of the joy of just borrowing and loaning books to friends and how fun that is. You know, you read a book and you give it to your friend to read and then you can talk about it, whereas that might never happen if you're just constantly solo buying books, or you know, just it being a lone venture. And the other thing that I've kind of got a renewed appreciation of is the library, because it's a place I used to go so often when I was younger, but then I was constantly just buying my own books and I wasn't really using the library. The 5 things I've kind of learned is that I don't really have a desire to buy books anymore. I thought it would be a bit more difficult, but it just, I think when I was focusing on what I already had, I realised the need to buy books just wasn't there, and it kind of goes to the overconsumption, underconsumption trend that is going around at the moment, where people are focusing on what they have and not just compulsively buying the next big thing. The second thing is that it's felt more rewarding because I'm working towards a goal and I'm seeing the payoff. And as a result, with number 3, I'm just feeling more positive all around with reading. It's not feeling like a chore. It's giving me time to focus on what I have and discovering books in my collection that I adore. And the 5th one being that I'm saving money. You know, that kind of goes without saying. And I'm just a bit more intentional with what I read. And I'm also, something new for me is if I'm not enjoying a book, I'm just DNFing. I've only done that once or twice, but before I would have just forced myself. And I don't know under what category that goes, maybe with the whole enjoyment thing and being a bit more mindful. I'm not forcing myself to read if I'm not enjoying the book, or if I'm not in the mood, I'll just pick something else up. Whereas before I was in such kind of a state about how many books I had that I was like, no, I have to read it. So I think the biggest takeaway, you know, is that reading has become more fun because I've stopped buying books, which perhaps seems like a contradiction, but it is the case that I stopped buying books and I kind of fell back in love with reading. That's 7 months in. We'll see how I feel at the end of the year. Maybe I will struggle a little bit more in the latter half of the year with Christmas releases and stuff, but for now I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling motivated to read more. I am halfway through my 26 books, so then we'll be down to 25 books left on my physical TBR, starting at 70 this year. So I'm pretty excited. My goal was to have between 10 to 15 books left at the end of the year, and I'm hoping that I will get to that and maybe even go further. So that's it. It's the little chat about, you know, reading and not buying books and my thoughts on it, because it was like a compulsion. I couldn't stop, but I've gotten to a place where I can, and it's so nice to just be able to window shop, and the joy of window shopping, that I can now go into a bookshop and enjoy it for the space that it is, because bookshops are lovely places, and I can come back out empty-handed and I can enjoy it for the experience and not for the draining of my wallet. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time.